بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. عن النهاردة إن شاء الله passage 3 test for IELTS 15 academic. عن القطعة بتتكلم على ال environmental practices of big businesses. التأثير البيئي على ال big business. طيب أسئلة. بسم الله. هنا summary. Many big businesses today are prepared to harm people and the environment in order to make money, and they appear to have no طيب هنا harm people make money have no. هنا أسئلة multiple choice من أول. The main idea of the third paragraph is that environmental damage من أول third paragraph. هنا yes, no, not given. The public should be prepared to fund good environmental practices. To fund. شوف بقى كده. The environmental practices are shaped by a fundamental fact. For many of us offends our sense of justice depending on the circumstances. A business may maximize the amount of money to have no at least by damaging the environment and hurting people. That is still the case today for fishermen in an undamaged fishery without quotas, and for international logging companies with short-term use in tropical rainforest land in places with corrupt officials الحكومات الفاسدة أو يعني المسؤولين الفاسدين unsophisticated land owners. When government regulation is effective, appear to have no maximize money, damaging, hurting people today without and for international corrupt officials. Type when a government regulation is effective and when the public is environmentally aware, environmentally clean, may outcompete dirty one, but the reverse is likely to be true if government regulation is ineffective. No lack of by governments and lack of public have no. هنا corrupt officials هتساوي هنا ان مفيش moral standard. ما no funding لأ، trees لأ، real involvement worker no moral standard. دي أقرب واحدة اليوم، يبقى 27 دي. lack of by governments طيب هنا when the public is environmentally aware where regulation is effective. بعد كده قال but the reverse is likely to be true. Government regulation is ineffective. هنا برضو regulation وهنا regulation. lack of by governments regulation بتساوي ايه بقى؟ involvement لأ. regulation control، هي اللي هتعمل control. and lack of public ايه public هنا awareness فين بتاعت فين business reverse public doesn't care. the public is environmentally aware هتساوي ايه؟ هتساوي involvement. يبقى lack of public involvement وهنا دي control can lead to environmental problems such as A or destruction of A. problems هنا اللي قال problems هنا for fishermen for logging companies. هي دي المشاكل اللي قالها هنا، هي مش جايب الترتيب. such as A or destruction of A. يبقى such as overfishing دي overfishing or the destruction of trees. يبقى هنا السؤال هنا مش جايب الترتيب، بس هما في نفس برضو ايه القطع، في نفس الباراجراف. ان هنا قال fishermen و logging companies اللي هي بتقطع الاشجار، شركات بتقطع الاشجار. طيب بعد كده it's easy for the rest of us to blame a business for helping itself by hurting other people, but blaming alone is unlikely to produce change. It ignores the fact that businesses are not charities but profit-making companies, that publicly owned companies شركات اللي هي الملكية عامة with shareholders and are under obligation to those shareholders to maximize profits provided that they do so by legal means. US laws make a company's director liable for breach of responsibility if they knowingly manage a company in a way that reduces profits. The car manufacturer Henry Ford was in fact assessing shareholders in the raising his business existed to make profits for. طيب هنا third paragraph. طب هنا the public should be prepared to fund good environmental practice. The public breach the public هنا hurting obligation. طيب هنا our blaming of business ignore the ultimate responsibility of public for creating conditions profit through destructive environmental. In the long run, it is the public, either directly or through politicians, the power to make such destructive policies unprofitable and to make sustainable environmental policies profitable. claiming profit loss for raising the minimum wage of his work. طب هنا السؤال عن third paragraph. The main idea is that environmental damage requires political action. لا, is the result of ignorance on the part of the public. لا, مش البابليك لوحدهم. could be prevented by the action of ordinary people. ممكن can only be stopped by educating. لا, يبقى 32 دي C. ordinary people ليها مقصود بيها public. in the fourth paragraph. طيب in the fourth paragraph the public can do that by suing businesses for harming them, as happened of oil were spilled in Alaska. The public may also make their opinion felt by preferring to buy sustainably harvested products, by making employees of companies with poor feel ashamed of their company and complain to their own management, by preferring their governments to award valuable contracts to business with a good environmental track record, pressing their government ضغطوا على الحكومات to pass and enforce laws يسن القوانين and regulations requiring هنا the writer describes ways in which the public can reduce individual impact. لا, learn more about the impact of business, raise awareness of the effects of specific environmental disasters, influence environmental policies of business and governments. influence لما يأثروا على البوليسيز والجوفرمنتس. اهي make their opinion felt by كذا بس products by making feel ashamed. يبقى كل ده ان هما يأثروا عليهم. يبقى ده the public should be prepared to fund good environmental practices. هي ممكن هنا مثلا the public may also make their opinion felt by preferring to buy sustainably harvested products. يعني هما يفضلوا الحاجات العضوية والحاجات الصديقة للبيئة مثلا. بعدين يبقى دي yes. هنشوف برضو هنا in turn في المقابل بقى big businesses can exert powerful pressure on any suppliers that might ignore public or government pressure. For instance, after the US public became concerned about the spread of a disease, BSE, which was transmitted through infected meat, the US government's Food and Drug Administration was demanding that the meat industry abandon practices associated with the risk of the disease. هما اهملوا القوانين المتعلقة بنقل الأمراض. But for 5 years the meat bakers refused to follow these, claiming that they would be too expensive to obey. صعب عليهم ان هما يتابعوا القوانين دي او يعملوا بيها. هتبقى غالية. however ايه بقى when a major fast food company then made the same demands after customer purchases of its hamburger plummeted. لما مبيعات الهمبرجر قلت عندهم the meat industry complied within weeks. فكل الناس اللي بيدولهم لحوم وكده اتبعوهم، يعني خلاص ما مشوش على قوانين البيئة. The public task is therefore to identify which links in supply chains are sensitive to public pressure. Fast food chains. يبقى مين اللي عليه اللوم في العملية دي؟ اللي هما big businesses، الشركات الكبيرة، مش الناس اللي بتورد لهم. What pressure was exerted by big business? What pressure? Meat bakers stopped supplying to fast food. A fast food company forced their meat suppliers to follow the law. لأ. Meat bakers persuaded the government. لأ. A fast food company encouraged the government. لأ. A fast food company forced to follow the law. Stopped supplying. لا. What pressure was exerted in case of the disease? Meat bakers persuaded. لا. A fast food company encouraged the government. لا. همبرجر لا، هي ما كانتش هي الميت. يبقى fast food company forced their meat suppliers to follow the law. هما اللي أجبروا الميت suppliers made some demands after of its the meat industry complied within weeks. هم قالوا اتباع القوانين هتبقى غالية. however لما الأمر جه من after made the same demands after customer، يبقى الكاستمرز هما اللي طلبوا كده، طلبوا اتباع القوانين البيئية. the meat industry اللي هما بقى الميت بيكرز اتبعوا القوانين. طيب should be prepared. contrast لسه. Some readers may be disappointed or outraged يغضبوا that I played the ultimate responsibility for business practices harming the public على حساب البابليك نفسهم. I also believe that the public must accept the necessity for higher prices. I also believe that the public must accept the necessity for higher prices for products to cover the added costs. عليهم انهم يقبلوا الزيادات عشان ينتجوا environmental practices. يبقى دي صح. yes. contrast between the moral principles of different businesses. contrast sound environmental to ignore the belief that businesses should act in accordance with moral principles even if this leads to a reduction in their profits. ignore we should act in accordance with moral principles. هنا contrast between moral principles of different businesses هنا act in accordance even if different businesses. لا دي not given. different businesses لا دي not given. it's important to make a clear distinction between acceptable and unacceptable behavior, but I think we have to recognize that throughout the human history, in all complex government regulation has arisen precisely because it was found that not only did moral principles need to be made explicit to be enforced، مش بس انها تكون واضحة بس تكون enforced، يعني تسن بقوة مثلا. To me the conclusion that the public had the ultimate responsibility for the behavior even the biggest businesses is empowering and hopeful rather than disappointing. My conclusion is not a moralistic one about who is right and who is wrong, admirable or selfish, a good guy or a bad guy. In the past have changed when the public came to expect and require different behavior. طيب هي my conclusion is not a moralistic one. هو مش قصده ايه الصح وايه الغلط، ايه الادميرابل وايه السيلفش، ايه الجود وايه الباد، يبقى ده مش not يبقى دي مش الحاجة المهمة عنده. it's important لا قالك not clear distinction. acceptable and unacceptable هنا بتساوي good و bad، بتساوي admirable و selfish، هما حاجتين عكس بعض، بس قالك it's not يبقى دي مش important، يبقى دي no. the public have successfully influenced businesses in the past. Businesses have changed when the public came to expect and require different behavior, to reward for behavior and to make things difficult for businesses practicing behavior the public didn't want. يبقى ايوه نجحوا، يبقى yes هما نجحوا في الإقناع او ان هما يأثروا على البيزنسز big businesses in the past. in the future businesses will show more concern for the environment. in the future I predict that in the future just as in the past changes in public attitudes will be essential for changes in business environmental practices. طيب هو قال هنا changed in public attitudes، مقالش in، وهتبقى دي not given، دي not given مش no ليه؟ لان هنا لو كان قال لي business will show والقطعة will not show يبقى كده تبقى عكسها، لكن هو اصلا هنا ما جابليش سيرة ان الشركات الكبيرة هتغير الاتيتيود بتاعها ناحية الجفرمنت. السؤال رقم 40. السؤال ده بيقول لك مثلا ايه العنوان المناسب للقطعة دي؟ فالعنوان المناسب السؤال ده تحله بعد ما تحل كل الأسئلة وتعرف والقطعة بتتكلم عن ايه. طيب will the world survive the threat caused by big business؟ world survive لا. how can big businesses be encouraged to be less driven by profit؟ لا ما جابليش سيرة ان هم يعني هيبقوا البروفيت هي اللي بتحكمهم بس. what environmental dangers are caused؟ لا ما جابليش environmental dangers. are big business to blame for the damage؟ طيب هما اللي to blame، هما اللي نلومهم البيج businesses ولا الناس اللي مثلا اللي تحتهم وكده؟ فالبيج businesses هما اللي to blame يعني للحاجة